In our opinion, the Rift is one of the best Skyblock updates, and we're not saying this purely from a design standpoint. If you are new to the game, the Rift is where you should be spending 99% of your time, frankly because everything in the Rift makes an absurd amount of money. And yeah, well, today that is the whole goal. We are going to be going over every Rift money making method so you know what to spend your time on. Before going into this video though, I do want to quickly ask you guys to subscribe to our channel. We just surpassed 29k subs, meaning that we're 1k away from the big YouTube rank, and with the goal of hitting it before 2024, every sub really means a lot more than you'll ever know. It's free, and hey, you could always change your mind later. And it's probably the best time as we have a ton of videos planned for the rest of December, so we wouldn't want you guys to miss out. Anyway, without wasting any more time, let's get into the video. First, before actually getting into any of the money making methods, we quickly want to talk about why the Rift is the best for early game money making, and why you should spend all your time here as a new player. First of all, there is no setup required. Unlike everything in the main island where you'll need gear and whatever, as you can see with a full empty inventory, I'm able to enter the Rift with a fully maxed out inventory. Everything here I obtained in the Rift, meaning it's practically free, minus the, I would say, 5 to 10 million coins you spend on Rift entry costs, which in the grand scheme of things and how much money you'll be making isn't really a lot. Next is that these money making methods will probably never die. As you can see by some of the things in my hotbar, the Rift has been out for a year and a half, and these money making methods actually over time have made more and more money, simply just due to inflation. And finally, before getting into things, we wouldn't want to recommend you guys getting into any Rift money making methods until you're fully maxed out with the Rift. This ensures that every entry going into the Rift, because more than likely if you're watching this video you probably don't have a Rift Prism, this ensures that every entry into the Rift will give you the most amount of time possible. As you can see on the time below, I currently have 70 minutes of Rift time, while if I go down here to someone like Big Nate, who only has 36 minutes because he's not done with the Rift. Currently, a Rift entry is 160k coins in the terms of the Grand XP bottles. We won't really be calculating these into the actual money making methods as, again, everyone's Rift time is a little different, and if you do care, just subtract 200 to 300k from whatever we make. Anyway, that's pretty much it for all the things that need to be covered, so let's get into our first money making method. The first of many money making methods rely in the Dread Farm, and there are actually 3 that we'll be looking at. The 3 include the Agaricus Cap, the Kataka Stem, and the Wilted Berberis. Out of the 3, we'll start off with Wilted Berberis. As you can see, there are many plots of these all around, but the one that we recommend the most is this one up front, which has 8 in this small little farm. The reason that we recommend this one over any of the other plots is simply because of how small it is. Whenever you break a Wilted Berberis, there's a little arrow that follows to each different one, and in such a small plot, you don't really need to pay attention and you're kind of just able to go around and whack them like this and be fine. The way that we'll be selling the Wilted Berberis into actual coins is through the Berberis Fuel Injector. In order to craft one of these, you need 338 Wilted Berberis, and these on Bazaar go for roughly 2.5 million coins. The best part about this is, again, with the Rift, you don't need actual gear. Assuming something like the garden on the main island, you need a full armor set, equipment, whatever. But farming here, all you need is this one wand of farming, and you can just go around and farm. But let's talk numbers. Like everything in this video, we tested everything out for 30 minutes, and multiplied the results by 2 so you could get the hourly rate. In 30 minutes of farming Wilted Berberis, we were able to craft 4.8 Berberis injectors, or in an hour that'd be 9.6 Berberis injectors. Now obviously you can't sell half of a Berberis injector, but I think you could get the point. If you sold these all for the price of 2.5 mil, that would total out to 24 million coins an hour. Considering that this is all sold to the Bazaar, and considering this is probably the easiest thing to grind in the Rift, as you're pretty much able to farm this all while looking at a second monitor, watching a movie or whatever, I would really recommend this one. Next up are the Agaricus Caps, which are the brown mushrooms all around the island. These, respectfully, are one of the most painful things to grind, and I say it for a good reason. If you're unfamiliar with these, all you need to do is stare at them for anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds until they turn red, in which you could then harvest them, and you get one of these. This can be really annoying as, unlike something like the Wilted Berberis, your attention's fully set on this as, let's say you miss it, it'll turn red and turn back to brown if you miss it. Not to mention, if you accidentally click on it before, it launches you all the way back. The way that we'll be selling these is by making Agaricus chum caps and then turning them into empty chum buckets. At the time of recording, they each go for 500k on the auction house, so we'll be using that. The only downside to this money making method is that this does require motes. So if I go into here and I go into the crafting recipe, you will need a plumber's bucket, which if I go ahead and talk to Plumber Joe, he'll sell you one for 1,000 motes. So unless you have extra motes from just doing whatever in the rift, I wouldn't really recommend this, but I'll quickly talk about what we got. After 30 minutes, we got 280 Agaricus Caps, which turned into 280 Agaricus Chum Caps. This did come at the cost of 35k motes. And not to mention, you do need to spend money on normal empty chum buckets to turn them into the upgraded variant, which we spent 640k on. That means in a full hour of farming Agaricus Chum Caps, we're able to get 70 buckets in a full hour. Which, if you could do some simple math, means that we're making 35 million coins an hour. Though, what we do need to do is subtract the 1.28 million coins that it does take in chum buckets to craft them, and then of course, the most obvious, the 70k motes. Later in this video, we will go over how many motes you could get an hour, so if you do need motes for this method, you could factor that in. Another thing is that you do have to sell these on the auction, meaning that who knows how long they will take to sell. Not to mention all the underbidding and whatever that is way easier to do on the bazaar, which you could do with the Wilted Berberis. And finally, the last one are these little roses being the Kataka Stems. These aren't anything too crazy to farm, you just need to break them from top to bottom and you get rewarded with one. The main thing that we'll be crafting with these is the Kataka's feeder. After 30 minutes of farming these, we got 905 Kataka Stems, which translates to pretty much exactly 2 feeders, or 4 in a full hour. If you sell these each for 5.5 million coins per, you're getting around 22 million coins an hour, which is the worst out of the 3, and straight to the point, we wouldn't recommend it, simply because this isn't any easier than some of the crops that we've already shown. Next up, and probably the most annoying money making method out of them all, is half-eaten carrots. These are horrible, and if you've done a playthrough of the Rift, you'll understand why. If you go over here and talk to Cowboy Nick, he'll summon a rabbit for you that you have to bring all throughout this field after you break the hay. As you can see, as I break the hay, carrots get uncovered, and we need to guide our rabbit over to these carrots for him to eat. Now thankfully, I do have this fishing rod in my inventory, the nearly coherent rod, fish, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And if I go over here and put it in front of my rabbit, he'll actually follow me, which is a lot better than the bullshit mechanic that already exists without it. As a point of reference, in order to get him here, I need to stand behind him, and even though he should be running that way, he decides to run into fucking nowhere. Where are you going, man? Anyway, I don't want to get myself heated on that. The main way that we are making money from these carrots are through exportable carrots. As you can see, you need 2 nearly whole carrots and a Volt and Scribe Crux to make a stack of exportable carrots. In the 30 minutes that we tested this out for, we got 42 half-eaten carrots, which translates to 21 stacks of exportable carrots. Or in other words, in a full hour, that is 42 stacks of exportable carrots. Though we cannot calculate the money yet, as we need to talk about the cruxes. Obviously, if you do a full hour of carrots, you can't simply just go ahead and sell them, you'll need to farm the cruxes available to actually turn them into exportable carrots. Now, I did do the grind, I grinded out 21 Scribe and Volt cruxes, and it took 4 minutes, which in a full hour would be 8 minutes. Doing some rough calculations, and a full thanks to ChatGPT, with the 24 mil that we would be making selling all the carrots, after including the time spent grinding the cruxes, it brings our total money per hour down to 21.1 million coins an hour. Conveniently, the worst grind on the list is also funnily the worst for coins. Amazing! Next up is a money making method with a lot of popularity behind it, and that is living metal heart grinding. This, in my opinion, is not the most enjoyable grind, but definitely one you should stick around for. Conveniently, if you did watch our Road to Hyperion series, this is one of the main money making methods that we did in order to actually afford the F7 run. All you need for this is a pickaxe, any pickaxe works, and then the frozen water fungi. This is used to tame the snakes if you're not aware. You could do this solo, but it's recommended that you also do this with somebody else as the rates get a lot better. All you do, and what we did for 30 minutes straight, is find these snakes around and just tame them and break them from tail to head. It's pretty simple but frustrating sometimes as these snakes can run away, but we still did it for 30 minutes and here are the results. In the 30 minutes we got 136 living hearts, or 272 in a full hour. This crafted into Bluetooth rings, which is 8.5, which is currently the best way to sell them. If you multiply that by their age price of 3.6 mil, that is 30.6 million coins an hour. Though again, this is solo rates, so what about duo? Well, finding somebody in the lobby to do this is actually very doable. As you could imagine, with a method that would make a lot of money, a lot of people would want to be doing it. Back when me and Vid were doing the Hyperion series, in an hour, we were able to manage to get 6 stacks of living metal hearts an hour. And yes, separately. This multiplied by the same price means we were getting 43.2 million coins an hour, which for an early game money making method that takes 0 effort to get into, is making me confused how some people in the early game still have an excuse to beg for money. Alright, and now we are here at the Stilgore Chateau. Here we have 2 money making methods, and those would be moat grinding and vampire slayer grinding. First, let's talk about moat grinding and actually what moats can be used on. You might think that it's a rift currency, so they don't really have much value, but that is until you talk to the Shen's auction. If you go inside the Shen's auction here, you could see we have the rift prism on display. These by far are the most valuable thing here, and normally they go for around 8 million motes. On the auction house, as you can see here, they go for around 1.2 billion coins, and if you're unaware, that's fully thanks to the Rift update. This meaning that if you divide 1.2 billion coins by the 8 million mote cost, that is roughly 150 coins per mote. This will probably change months down the line as the update cools down, but for the foreseeable future, which I would roughly say a month or 2 from now, the prices will stay similar to this. Now back here, we want to talk about moat grinding. This takes place here in the chateau, and all that we will be doing is killing vampires. Now before doing this, I did mention that you do want to be maxed in the rift, and that does include all your 5 burgers. If I go ahead and hover over this burger right here, each burger will give you 12 rift time, 40 motes on orb pickup, which isn't really important, but what is the 5% motes from the moat grubber. Once you eat 5, that means you're getting 25% motes, which means probably a roughly 20% faster grind to get the actual Rift Prism, and is what we use throughout all our testing, so if you do want to compare your rates to ours, that is what we had, as you could expect. Now there is something to talk about, and that's killing these isn't solely the best way to make the motes. As you can see, if I kill one right here, and you look on the right side of my screen, I'm getting 200 motes. But that isn't the main part. The main thing is that you're getting vampiric melons. Okay, are we really gonna fuck up my recording? Like, fuck you. Now, something weird about the vampiric melon is that compared to its enchanted form, these don't really sell for much. If I go ahead and right click and go over here, you could see that if I go ahead and add up all the costs for the 160 vampiric melons, we're only looking at 19.2k motes. But if I go ahead and hover this, it shows that one of these gives you 21k motes. So do keep in mind, if you do plan to do this for a money making method, that you're never selling these vampiric melons on their own, and that you're always crafting them into enchanted. Anyway, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's talk about the results. In the 30 minutes that we spent just killing vampires, we were able to get 124,225 motes. Or in a full hour, that's 248,450 motes. Now hold on just there, because that's not including melons. From the melons in 1 hour, assuming that you sell every melon in its compacted form, you're gaining an additional 150,280 motes. Added together, that means in an hour you are getting 398,730 motes, which is pretty good. If you multiply this by a calculation of 150 coins per mote, that is just under 60 million coins an hour, which is insane, as all you're doing is stabbing vampires. Though the thing is that this does come at the cost of doing 20 hours worth of vampire grinding. Unlike every other method where you could do that method for only a few minutes and end up with a few million coins, this you will not get the grand prize unless you are doing all 20 hours. Which does explain why this makes so much, as grinding vampires is 1, not only mind-numbingly boring, 2, you probably will spend a few million coins on rift costs, which to some you don't have to worry about because you already have a rift prism, and finally because killing vampires here can be one of the most toxic things in Skyblock. Finally though, we can move on to our next method, and that is tier 5 Vampire Slayer. Unlike the rest of them, we can't simply just do a test for 30 minutes and let you guys know the rates. So to counter this, I will show you 2 hours worth of tier 5 Vampire Slayer. Now, I do want to be fully transparent, in these 2 hours this is including some deaths. Doing tier 5 Vampire Slayer, no matter how good you are, you will just ultimately never not die. So it would just be fully lying if I did not include some of my deaths into the 2 hour profits. If you're unaware, Vampire Slayer is so unbelievably easy to grief, and it is pretty tough. so my claims are fully reasonable here. Though it's not like I went into this blindly, I obviously warmed up with a few bosses that didn't actually count to the actual total, so these rates would pretty much look like what it would be like if you were to do Vampire Slayer. How the fuck did I run out of rift time already? Now, there are two things to the Slayer. One, again, is that we're doing this for motes. That is just how you make the majority of the money in the rift. Drops like cookies, the dice, enchanted book bundles, whatever, are all sold to the NPC for motes, and will be used eventually to buy a rift prism. The other drops of the Slayer include the unfanged vampire part and the one. These will be transferred outside of the rift to be sold in the real world. And finally, one more thing to clarify before going into any more detail about the Slayer, this is fully RNG dependent. Giving a proper money per hour is impossible as every hour is different. We'll get a little more in depth in this later on, but let's quickly talk about what we made in our 2-hour test. Something to note is this boss has a pretty high summoning cost. To summon a boss, it is roughly 9.5 thousand motes. Well, not roughly, it is 9.5 thousand motes. But if you subtract the scavenger that you get from killing the vampires, it's only around 6,500. And don't worry, we will include the melons. We'll talk about that in a bit. This guy wants to play Splitter Seal. I'm gonna beat his ass. Hold up. Yep, that's one. That's two. That's three. He's not. That's four. That's five. Oh my god. Six. Oh my god. Seven. Bang! What a noob. Alright, anyway, and just to quickly mention as well, we will be subtracting the mote cost from the amount that we're making an hour, as the money that the motes that you are spending do really add up. So anyway, in the 2 hours of killing Vampire Slayer, out of the 36 bosses that I did, I completed only 33. If you are wondering, these boss rates are increased heavily due to the new item, the Super Shark and Stabby Steak. What a name. This makes spawning near 2 times faster than before, thanks to the 1.5 times combat wisdom that this gives. Anyway, loot time. I'll throw a little screenshot up on the screen for you guys to see visually, but starting off, we got 3.1k Coven Seals, which sells for 38.7k motes. We got 432 Vampiric Melons, which is 70.8k motes, 7 Quantum Book Bundles, which is 70k motes, 4 Bubble Blisters, which is 50k motes, 3 Fantastic Cookies, which is 37.5k motes, 2 Guardian Lucky Blocks, which is only 12.5k motes, and 1 Mech Robber's Burger, which is 37.5k motes. And if you're wondering, we have 6 shit Soul Twist runes, which don't sell for anything. Altogether, in the 2 hours worth of Vampire Slayer, we got 317k motes. But that's not the worst part yet. We didn't subtract the spawn costs, and if you do, we're looking at only 83k motes in profit. Or in other words, 12.45 million coins. At an hourly rate, we're only looking at 6.2 million coins an hour, which is not good, but to be fair, I didn't get any RNG drops, which is where my results do slack a little. Currently, if you drop the 1 book bundle, that is 52 million coins instantly. And if you drop a Dentist Relic, you're looking at another 77 million coins, but that is including 8 blood badges that you have to craft. Again, there's no actual way to figure out how many drops of X you'll get in X amount of time. This does have the potential to make really good money, and if you do love RNG, this is a great way to test it out early game. Again, as there's technically 0 setup required, but at the end of the day, this all lays in the hands of Mr. RNG. So, would I recommend this? Probably not, for how much just killing vampires makes on its own, but again, I'm not going to stop anyone from trying this on their own. And in my opinion, after the Rift update, this did make Vampire Slayer a lot worse. Because of the 1.5 times combat XP, that means you're killing roughly, I don't know, I think it was 14 less vampires, which is a lot of motes and melons that you're missing out on. So you're more relying on the other drops, such as the 2 that I just mentioned, to actually make good money. Now, I would have normally ended the video there, but funnily enough, the Rift update is now out. I was not expecting it to be out, but now we could cover all the money making methods from here. First thing though, I do want to quickly talk about something, and you did see it early in the video as I 1v1 that guy, and that is the Hypixel Cube. Now, you don't actually need anyone, but if I go over here on the other side of the mountaintop, if I go here right behind the wizard tower, and you could kind of see at the top left where my coordinates are, you could go ahead and duel these NPCs, which I would recommend doing Benson. You do have to complete the questline here in order to obtain the Hypixel Cube, but if you right click on one of these NPCs, every 2 hours you're able to duel them. I've tested it a few times and it seems like I've gotten anywhere from like 20k all the way up to 35k motes. I think you could actually get up to 45k. The strategy with Benson here is all you need to do is steal, as if you go ahead and left click him, he has a playstyle of 100% always doing split. If you do the math and let's say you get 25k motes on an average and multiply that by the 150 coins per mote, that is 3.7 million coins you're getting over time of course, but in the span of probably 10 seconds. Not to mention, you're doing this multiple times a day, so it really adds up quick. But this isn't really a money-making method, more of a passive thing, so let's get into the two that you can do actively. Now, the money-making methods go ahead and rely inside of here. Inside the Mountaintop, you have all these glass panes that, if you're unaware, you could mine one just simply for the Youngite. Use this time gun here and hold it over one of the light blue ones to make it blue and get a Timite, or hold it longer from the light blue to the blue and then into purple for a Obsolite. Now, as you can see in the bottom, the mote prices aren't really a lot, but what are the crafts? There are two, and if you go ahead here into the collection, you have Highlight and you have Discreet. First, we'll talk about highlights. The time that it takes to craft one of these is roughly 4 minutes. It takes 32 Timite, 32 Youngite, and then 16 Obsolite. With my rates of 4 every minute, you're able to get 15 an hour, and at the current price of 2.1 million coins per, that is a payday of 31.5 million coins. Honestly, not bad, as this is gemstone mining just on another island, and you could do it with, again, no setup. And the other one being Discreet, which takes 37 minutes to craft, or around 1.6 Discreet an hour. Currently, at the prices, you're able to sell one for around 27 million coins. And if you do the math, that is roughly 42 million coins an hour, which is a lot more than Highlight and is for a good reason, as crafting one is a lot more time commitment, as you can see, takes a lot more Obsolete, a lot more Timid, and nearly no Youngite. Now, a little, warning here, this update is pretty new, and these prices are due to change. So if you're watching this maybe a week, maybe even a month after, make sure to do your own calculations, as these prices could have changed drastically. Oh yeah, and a little tidbit here, if you go over here to the Ubik von Neumann here, I'm so sorry if I said that incorrectly, but you could go ahead and every skyblock here get a free will. Now, as you can see, these goes for 80 million coins on the bazaar, but there is a caveat. Again, this is once every skyblock here, and it is a rare chance to actually get one. And I'll tell you why. First of all, the Skyblock community is clueless. You'll never be able to predict them. Proof shown by the fucking mayors. Second of all, this is kind of hard to predict. But as you can see, if we go into the rules, the way that this actually works is it rewards 10% of the participants, the closest ones, in getting half of the average. Meaning that, as you can see, last year's average was 50.69. So divide that by 2, if you got that number, you would get a free will. Not to mention, if a player chooses a number 4 times higher than the average, you'll get 2 free wills. Again, this is hard to predict, as it could be 50, next year it could be 30, no one really fucking knows. It's a Skyblock community, it's always a 50-50. Me personally, I am banking on the fact that it's gonna go lower than 50, probably in the range, hopefully, of it being 44, which divided by 2 is 22. But then again, I could be fucked in the ass and not get this Enigma Soul for a year, and I'm crashing out. I hate RNG. Why is this in the game? Like, fuck you. Anyway, whatever. Finally, one more thing that I'm gonna briefly cover, because I know some people are gonna mention in the comments, and that's why I'm not mentioning the Oreo the Almighty. Oreo? I don't know, man. Anyway, the reason that I'm not mentioning this is if you go ahead here and look at you're only getting 5 essence a boss, but this does increase per multiplier. And if you do the math, if you have these enabled, which you don't really want to have this one on, you're getting 35 essence a boss. Now, the closest thing you could get is the Unreal Shuriken, which if you look here, assuming that you're able to sell order them, is 1,070,000 coins. Now, if you go based off of the mote price, this has a 750k coin buy-in. And in my opinion, these don't really seem worth it compared to anything else in the Rift. Now, I am being a little lazy and I fucking hate this boss. It's trauma-inducing, but in my opinion, I don't think it's really worth it, especially when you compare it to things like the Vampire and Mining, but to each their own. Just wanted to mention it, as it is something you can do if you want to go on leaderboards or whatever. It will make some money, don't get me wrong, but would I recommend it? Frankly, no. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I think we covered everything in the Rift I mentioned that could possibly make money. This new Rift update, in my opinion, was pretty fun, and honestly, I would recommend checking it out, even if you're not going to do it for money just to beat the update. It doesn't take that long, don't worry. If you do have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I will try to answer a few of them. Who knows, maybe I won't answer any of them. I can't hold myself to that. We'll see in the future, but these methods are pretty self-explanatory, so I wouldn't imagine there's many questions you could really ask about this. But yeah, again, I will leave it off here by saying that the Rift is an amazing early game money making method. The entry cost is near nothing. You don't need any equipment. Again, I was doing all that with here, as you can see in my main profile, nothing in my inventory. That is a complete separate dimension. And I guarantee if I started a new profile, if I grinded 5-10 million coins, however, that's all I would need to make 1 billion coins in probably only a few days. So if you know any nons that are actively backing in hubs for money, please send them this video. If not, hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe and see ya.